is a whole world of cinema to discover. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. This is that 1-inch barrier. Nick LaBarriere, Josh Barry, and Kieran Griffiths. Gentlemen, good morning. How are we on this lovely Sunday morning?
Good. Yeah, hot and humid. Lovely Queensland summer day.
That's it. And as all, tradition now, Josh, you got a bit of a hangover?
Yep. But let's move on.
He's like, please, let's move on.
The quicker we can get through this episode, the better.
The better. And well, hey, this should be a nice, quick, short, punchy episode because we are it's only a 3-hour-long movie, which is our wheelhouse. We love long cinema, but no, we do love long cinema when it's a film as good as this. And continuing with our Oscars series with our Best International Feature Film Series, which started with All Quiet on the Western Front. So thank you all for watching that episode. We deemed it worthy to continue on. And we're now in 2021 with Drive My Car, which obviously won the Oscar for Best International Feature Film. As you will probably find out in this episode, spoiler alert, probably deservedly so. We're all quite big fans of this film. We all saw it at the cinema together when it came out.
We did. That was cute.
It was cute, wasn't it?
Because Susie, I then realised Susie came to that.
Yeah, and I think my partner
and Christiana came. No,
yeah,
Rihanna didn't come. Rihanna didn't come because at that point she was a uni, like 7th year of uni, and she was like, "I'm sure it's great, but I got to study instead of watching a 3-hour Japanese film." And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Do you mean?" And it worked out well because she is now the breadwinner of the family. But we all saw it at the cinema when it actually finally got released in Australia in 2022. Unfortunately, we had to wait a little while, but it's a great opportunity to revisit it because I haven't seen it since the cinema. I'm not sure.
First rewatch for me as well.
Yep.
And I'm excited to break it down today. But I mean, going into just the basics of the film, it is directed by Ryusuke Hamaguchi. This was my first time watching a Hamaguchi film, but he's actually quite a renowned director. We did watch another one of his films in the cinema.
Wheel of Fortune and Fantasy,
Which we
did
all,
I see that?
You did see that with us, yeah. All these memorable experiences we've had as a friendship group, and Josh was like, wait a second. Not with you guys.
You didn't like it, which is probably why you don't remember it.
I did not. And we'll go on with this. I'm not as big a fan of this film either.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Getting the hot takes out early.
I put words in Josh's mouth. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
We all love this film. Josh is sitting there going, maybe not.
Yeah, right. I forgot about that other film. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense for me.
That's sort of like the three. What do you call it?
They're like short stories, vignettes sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I remember.
But this is, speaking of short stories, this is Drive My Car is adapted from a short story,
which is hilarious. Like getting a 3-hour film out of a short story.
And it's from a collection of short stories called Men Without Women, which I think is actually quite interesting. I didn't know that before this second watch. And that's actually quite interesting going into, I've noticed in the credits. It was in the credits this time. And I thought that was quite interesting based on sort of what the film is about. And as we break it down, that'll make a lot of sense. But okay, so we were fans of the film. You liked it.
I like it, but it's not, especially for how critically well it's done.
Right. And I guess this will maybe one of the big reasons the other films it went up against in 2021 with the Best International Feature Film. We had the documentary Flea, which was fantastic. It's an animated documentary about migrants. I can't remember what country from, my bad. It's great producing right online. It's a Danish film. Fleeing from Afghanistan to Denmark. Which was a beautiful film. The Hand of God from Paolo Sorrento. I haven't seen that film.
I loved that.
Love that film. Have you seen that one?
That's on Netflix as well. That's well worth a watch.
Lunana, A Yak in the Classroom.
I watched that recently.
Josh is all over it.
It's good.
I'm glad someone's prepared because I'm not.
It's good. It's
worthy of an Oscar nomination for Best International Feature.
No, I don't think so.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's quite a subtle film, but I think because that one's from Bhutan.
It's Bhutan.
Yeah, so it's different.
Obviously, the one that's probably going to cause the most contention in the group, which was arguably one of all of our collective, I can say confidently, collective favorite films, is friend of the show. We can call him that. Joachim Trier's film from Norway, The Worst Person in the World, which we all adored and loved, and will probably end up on the show one day.
Almost certainly. Yeah. I mean, straight off the bat, since we're talking about it already.
Yeah.
What should have won, in your opinion?
And you're going
Yeah,
off those two,
this
aren't
is.
you, really?
I'm going off those two. It's either between Drive My Car or Worst Person in the World. For me personally, I would have loved Worst Person in the World to win. I saw that one 3 times in pretty quick succession. I think it's the one
ya?
that. Yeah, and all in the cinema too. We saw it at
wow.
Biff, and then I saw it with Rhiannon, and then I saw it just again because I loved it.
That's impressive because that is an emotionally damaging film.
And I'm an emotionally damaged person now. But it's one of those ones where I just, we spoke about it briefly on the last episode. It's just no matter what time in your life you're at, it will hit you in a different way.
Yes.
I still think, and we kind of briefly spoke about it before recording, I didn't get as much out of this second watch of Drive My Car, but I still think it's a fantastic film. So I think my heart leans towards Worst Person in the World for which I would have preferred to win. How about you?
Oh yeah, I mean I remember coming out of the cinema screening for Drive My Car, and I just felt like I didn't get it.
Right. Okay.
So going into this one, I thought I feel like surely on the second watch I'm going to pick something up, and it just doesn't. I just don't relate to it or something. I don't know.
Fair enough. Yeah. That's a big part about
it's beautifully made film.
Yeah.
Like it's beautifully shot, beautifully acted. I normally like movies that really take their time but this one I was just like, kind of like, okay.
You're ready for it to keep going.
Yeah.
Especially a movie where its opening credits happen 45 minutes into the
I
film.
know.
So
I actually do like that.
I love that.
I love it too.
There's
yeah.
a couple of films I've seen that I can't think of off the top of my head that do it, but I love it because it's just such
I can tell you one. The Departed does that.
There you go. Of course it does. I think it's such a bold way to do it.
Yeah,
because
totally. Yeah,
you feel like you're like, oh, where's the film going? And then it hits you with the opening credits. Like, oh shit, like that's just
based
just
on
the
that.
start.
You're just starting, right? Yeah. And Drive My Car is a perfect example of that. Before we go into it, how about yourself? What would you have preferred to win at the Oscars that year?
I'm very much similar to you, Nick, in that I really like Drive My Car. I think it's a fantastic film. I think it's a beautiful film. But The Worst Person in the World is probably one of the best films I've seen in the last 5 years.
Wow, yeah.
I absolutely adore that movie. It hit me on an emotional level like few other films have. And I think, like you said, it's one of those ones that you watch it at a certain time in your life and when you've been through certain experiences, and it just really hits differently. And I think, as someone who's now in their late 20s and kind of grappling with that identity crisis that Julie is in the film of like, what am I doing? Where do I belong? Who am I? It really hits close to home. Not that I couldn't connect with Drive My Car, but that's obviously just a very sort of different experience.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So for me, Drive My Car is not an undeserving winner, and I think it is the more Oscar-y of the two.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah. I think.
But if it was my pick, it would have gone to Joachim Trier, and it would have gone to The Worst Person in the World.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's like we've all said, it's still a fantastic film for what it is. I will say as well, I didn't necessarily relate a lot to this film. There are so many events that do occur in this film that have not happened to me in real life,
Really?
Funnily enough, I'm not a stage actor. I'm not a stage director. I don't have glaucoma. My wife didn't die. Like, you know what I mean? Like but there's something about the screenplay that I think it's so well written. And I think the conversations, while not very expository in the sense of like, it's hammering you over the head with how these people feel, there's so much subtext in the conversations that it made me really emotionally attached to a lot of these characters, specifically the lead character. But a quick breakdown of the film. It follows a stage actor and a director, Yusuke Kafuku, who lives in Tokyo with his wife, Otto. So he's a stage director and an actor, and she writes for television. She writes drama for TV. And an interesting dynamic of their relationship is that a lot of the stories she comes up with are post-sex. She'll have sex with Yusuke, and then regale these stories and there's this common story that she's doing a TV show about a girl who's a high school girl who breaks into her high school boyfriend's house and leaves a token of something of hers behind to show that he was there. And it's an interesting, and it's told in this especially this beautifully shot opening scene, the sunrise silhouette behind her as she's telling this story. There's a very fantastical element to it. It feels like a fairy tale almost, which I kind of love.
Does she forget it? Does she have to get him to relay it the next day? Or?
Yeah,
I think that's part of it as well. Yeah.
So she sort of does this in this state of
it's like euphoria, right?
Post-sex bliss,
post-coital euphoria. Yeah.
We got the word coital in there nice and early.
Ticking that off the bingo list. Yeah.
But then just make me think of Russell Coit.
The sex icon of Australia. Yeah.
Great foreign film star Russell Quinn. But yeah, as sort of they're driving, as he's driving her to work the next day, he's kind of recounting what she's told him, and she's taking notes on her phone,
and she's taking that to work. Obviously, like she's working on these shows, and then
But as Nick said, it's adapted from a Haruki Murakami short story, and I mean, I think if you've read a book before, you're probably pretty familiar with Murakami. He's one of the most sort of, I guess, acclaimed writers from outside of English-speaking countries.
Right.
Like he's done some, incredibly popular and critically acclaimed books. And this was, a collection of short stories that all kind of focus on, as the title suggests, men without women.
Yes.
In different aspects of their lives. And then, as Nick alluded to, very early on in the film, his wife dies.
We will say early on. It's about half an hour into the film, but it's still the opening.
In the grand scheme
like
of the length
prologue
of the film,
right?
It sets up the entire movie, is the death of his wife. And then he then goes on to...
I'll just say as well quickly, before she dies, he discovers that she's been cheating on him as well, or at least been sleeping with a young actor that is working with a TV show, because that does come back into the fold quite heavily later on. But yeah, when she dies, it's quite a... That's what I love about this film. It's understated, yet you were saying earlier, it's very layered.
Yeah,
he walks in, she's dead, and it's not like a big... There's no sweeping score of like he's just lost the love of his life.
Well,
it's just a very...
Is there a score?
There is very
but it's
minimal.
Used, really sparingly.
minimally, yeah.
A lot of it is, funnily enough, in the car scenes. Like when the car's driving, and there we just get all the shots of where they drive around Japan and stuff. And
but after the death of his wife, a couple of years later, he's hired to direct a multilingual production of the famous Anton Chekhov play Uncle Vanya, which was written in about 1899.
I think it was the late 1800s.
So it's a very old Russian play, but very famous. It's been performed, for 100 years.
Yes.
And so he's sort of tasked with directing this production of it, and then it kind of, the story goes from there. And I guess the challenges that he faces in overcoming the death of his wife, and directing this play as well, which is quite a personal one for him.
Yeah.
But it's...
Which he had previously acted in.
We see that in the prologue.
Yeah.
And there are obviously, and we'll unpack this a little bit more, but there's a lot of parallels between the play and the film, and how that intersects with his life and the life of others.
Yeah.
I think... It's hard because you can watch this film and appreciate it without knowing anything about the play.
Yes, and that was me going into it in fairness both times as well. Yeah.
But I think had you seen the play, or at least read the script, or had some prior knowledge, you would get a lot more out of the film because so
are
many
you
of those
pretty aware of the story of Uncle Vanya?
I have sort of like a general understanding of what it's about and what the themes are and things like that. But I've not seen it. I know that I think Andrew Scott, who we've been talking about a lot lately, he's doing like a one-man production of it for National Theatre.
Yeah, it's about to play at Dendy.
So we might have to go and see that. There's a little bit
interesting,
of post-reading because I think it's not the traditional approach to it. I think, like I said, he's doing it as sort of like a one-man show.
Yeah.
But I think that'd be really interesting. But
it would be,
it's hard because I think there are a lot of films where you kind of get more out of it by understanding more about the context.
Right.
It's like Charlie Kaufman's I'm Thinking of Ending Things.
Right.
That was a film I didn't particularly enjoy, and I think that's because I didn't understand a lot of the background information.
Yes.
But I know people who loved it, and they got a lot of like the references and the themes and what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
But I still think you can enjoy this knowing you don't have to know who Anton Chekhov is. You don't have to know what Uncle Vanya is. But you'll get more out of it.
There's still quite a beautiful human story sort of at its core. And again, something you said, it's like, it's not necessarily a complex film. It's not necessarily a complex narrative, but it's very layered. And the characters are very layered. They're very human. They're very, that's the thing. There's no one who's very, I don't think there's many two-dimensional characters in this film, no matter how small of a role they have. And then where Drive My Car, I guess, as a practical thing comes into play is that part of the contract of directing this play is because of a previous accident with an actor. This company is like, we need your car to be driven by a professional driver to and from, and they strike up a friendship together, like a bond. I wouldn't even call it a friendship. It's just this bond over time.
It's like a mutual appreciation and understanding
as they find out more about each other and sort of their complex histories, I guess, as to who they are. And it's I think. Overall, I think this is I would say it's a very sweet film. It's not one that's, covered in sugar and you're like, oh my, you walk away feeling happy. But I there's a slice of life aspect to it that I really appreciated. That, funnily enough, to make a quick comparison, I don't know if you guys have seen Perfect Days yet, the new Wim Wenders film. A very similar thing where it's very much a slice of life following a janitor just around his calls. I didn't connect with that one as much as I connected with this, but there's still such an appreciation that a movie could be 3 hours long. That is literally just very mundane conversations between humans about their lives, and you can still be quite emotionally affected by it. And I think there's three main things at play there. I think the script is fantastic. The dialogue is really well written. I think the performances are fantastic, and it's a beautiful looking film. And I think you touched on that earlier. This is a beautiful looking movie.
It's really Japanese.
Oh, very much so.
If you think of any just attention to detail and like if any Japanese posters, it just feels like that they've put so much attention into the detail of every shot, where everything is placed. It's just like, beautiful.
It's very muted as well. Like it's not big flashy cinematography or anything like that, or like very eye-catching editing or anything like that. It's very understated. You have these sort of long shots, very static shots, but sort of beautifully lit and framed. So it really captures that emotion of the film. And with what you were saying about where the title of Drive My Car comes from, I think the reason why that's so impactful, he's not just being, someone has to drive my car.
Practicality of it, right? Yeah.
He's very attached to his car. It's this beautiful Saab 900 Turbo in red. And it really stands out as well because I don't know if this is deliberate, but every other car in the film is either like black, white, or silver.
Absolutely. It sticks out.
Yeah. So he's got this bright red car, and it's a non-Japanese car as well. I don't know. Where are Saabs from?
That's a good question. I'll do that while you're talking.
Yeah, some kind of European. But it's a beautiful car and he loves it very much. He's had it for, like 15 years, I think he says, and it's sort of in like pristine condition.
Yeah.
Are we about to
Sweden.
Sweden.
Yeah, right.
It sounds Swedish. So he's really attached to this car. And and he's also requested accommodation an hour away from the place where he's directing from, because when he's driving, he listens to these tapes that his wife recorded of her reading the lines for Uncle Vanya, but leaving out Vanya's parts. So his wife reads the script, and then he speaks the parts that he should know. So that's kind of like this, acting thing that he does, where he listens to these tapes while he's driving. So he's having so much of that taken away from him. And it's sort of like having that, I guess, connection with his craft and his wife as well, taken away from him. So it's a really personal thing, and he's really against it at the start. So I think that's the important thing to understand, that it's not just like, someone's going to drive your car for you. It's like, having that, he's losing that connection
as well. I want to jump back quickly to talk about the muted style shots, because I think, and I may not be 100% correct on this, but something I did notice, that probably predominantly the only moving shots in the film I found were either in the car or following the car. I think everything else that is a shot of any character in the film was quite static and quite purposeful in the framing, because I think it's Hamaguchi's way of being like, this is what's happening right in front of you now. And one of the most beautiful scenes in the film is Yusuke is kind of compelled to hire the actor who his wife slept with, who was on the TV show, and he's going to play Uncle Vanya, like the lead role, right? And he's battling with it initially, but he does end up hiring him, and they get drunk together a couple of times throughout the film. And there's this beautiful scene where they both talk about how much they did love Otto, and the stories that he recounts, or he finishes one of the stories that Yusuke did not think Otto had finished for him. And the way that is shot, and the camera it's a static shot on both, but it gets closer and closer to like the eye line, to the point by the end of the scene, you are staring into both their eyes. And I was like, it's so subtle and it's so well done, and it's not moving. Any Hollywood director would have started moving that camera and we'd all be going like, oh my God, this is going to win best cinematography. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of like you're manipulating through the movement? Are you manipulating emotion through the movement? Whereas I think just those small static cuts, which is fantastic. And there's, I mean, you could count on two hands how many scenes are like that in this film. But yeah, it's interesting. I just didn't think the camera was actually moving unless it was showing the car moving, basically.
And there's no real score in that scene either. It is just these two guys in the back of a car talking, and it's one of the probably most impactful and powerful scenes from that year.
Can I get my second one too? Because now I'm just thinking about it.
Is it the audition?
The audition scene is great. That's maybe number 3.
Yeah, that was good.
When they're smoking in the car. And it's just
course.
silent between just the
cigarette
out
through
the
the
sunroof.
really
I
good.
love that shot. But that's just probably more in a set. Like the scene is beautiful.
Yeah.
The audition scene is powerful. But I think that's just aesthetically a beautiful scene.
Do you think he hires him out of a bit of malice, like to try and...
Maybe initially,
that's what I mean. Initially, to try and... Because
it's a complicated one because I think there are so many parallels between, and this is where we get into the layers of the film, right? There's so many parallels between Yusuke, who is the director, and bear with me, I don't do my research, as you can tell. What's the actor's name?
Koji. The actor?
the young actor,
The young actor's Koji.
Koji.
Okay. Yep.
So he sees Koji sleeping with Otto after Koji's been introduced to him after one of his performances.
Yes.
So he's aware of who he is, and he knows who he is because he's on TV and he's in one of Otto's shows. And we sort of find out throughout the film that he's not the first one.
Yes.
That Otto made a habit of sleeping with the sort of, main star of her shows. And then as soon as the show would finish, she'd like cast him aside and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
And Yusuke was sort of, throughout the film, grapples with how he feels about that and whether he's okay with it.
Yeah.
And it sort of hinted that maybe, because she didn't know that he knew.
Right? No,
So before she dies, the morning of, she says to him, when you get home tonight, can we talk about something?
Yeah.
She doesn't say what, but it's obviously a serious conversation. And so he refuses to go home basically until the last, the end of the night because he doesn't want to have this conversation because he says we would never be the same again. No matter what it is, we wouldn't be the same again after this conversation. Yeah. And he never finds out what that conversation was going to be because she does die before that. So I think there are parallels between the two of them in that I think Koji is sort of how Yusuke maybe sees himself. Yeah. Sort of that young actor, like full of life and the center of attention and I guess the object of Otto's desires and things like that. So I think it's sort of he wants to get back at him, but he also wants to understand him better. And he wants to be him. But Koji also wants to be Yusuke. Because Otto married him and Otto loved him and he sort of had this unrequited...
Koji loved her as well, as we find out a lot later in that scene, like the admiration he had for her was immense, right? Like,
so they sort of come across as two sides of the same coin. So like you said, I think there is malice in it.
I think actually it's because the young guy, Koji, wants a different part, doesn't he?
Yes, so
initially,
and he gives him
Uncle Vanya,
who is an older...
Yeah. But he's the main character of the play.
He's the main character. Yeah.
And so, everyone sort of expects Yusuke to play Uncle Vanya because he's played it before and he's the, older, more experienced actor, but he just chooses to direct. And I think that choice, again, it's sort of, it's malicious, but it's also this
it's
weird
like setting him up to
respect.
fail almost. Like you kind of want to do that and then be like, and then... They go out and drink together, like all good bonding sessions happen over a couple of beers, right? But
and Koji only auditions for the play because he wants to get closer to Yusuke so he can learn more about also. So it's like this little love triangle almost where no one really says how they're really feeling.
And
no one knows who's feeling what. But that audition scene where Koji does his audition along with one of the other actress. That's a really powerful scene.
It's a great scene. It's a fantastic scene.
Like the dialogue and the chemistry between the two of them and the tension in the air. And he, it sort of leads up to this moment where he and the actress kiss. And like quite passionately, and Yusuke sort of jumps out of his chair. Is like, that's enough. Because obviously, he's seeing him with his wife. So it's really, and it doesn't linger on those moments.
No, not at all.
Like we said, it's really understated. But it doesn't give you much time to kind of sit with that emotion, which I think is very intentional and very deliberate because all these characters are kind of pushing that emotion down and ignoring it. Just to go on a ramble for a bit.
No, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic point to bring up as well because it makes kind of like that relationship is so interesting to break down between Koji and Yusuke. But then we've got, and I've forgot the driver's name, Toko. Then that makes the relationship between Yusuke and Toko far more interesting because that you could argue that would be the central relationship of the film, but it's kind of not at the same time. Like, and I think Toko is a very complex character as well. I think she brings a fair bit of mystery to her background. She doesn't talk about her past a lot. She, I love that she sort of drip feeds information to Yusuke about her past and saying he just goes one day, he's like, can we just drive for a bit? Like, take me somewhere. You take me wherever. Yeah. And she takes him to a garbage plant. And he's kind of like
the cleanest garbage plant.
I mean, beautiful. Like in
Japan, right?
Yeah, that's right. Even as the little trucks were coming in, I'm like, well,
but you find out she was a garbage truck driver, and you're like, oh, okay. It's like she's driven a lot. But then as we find out more about her and sort of they connect, then it becomes more of there's a friendship there that's less about, two sides of the same coin, and it's like it's actually two completely separate coins, but they're kind of the same currency. They both come from like a world of hurt, basically. And I think that's quite amazing. I just read this as you were talking, Kieran, but this was actually originally supposed to be set in South Korea and moved to Hiroshima because of COVID. They had to film in Japan because of COVID. So this was initially supposed to be a South Korean film.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what that changed. I just want to get a sort of a reaction from that because that to me, I was kind of like, I wonder what that would be. Yeah. That's to me is insane because
I feel like Japan plays so much of a large part in the story, and Hamaguchi's a Japanese director. Murakami is a Japanese writer.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I don't know how that would have changed because I guess part of what we do.
Was it going to be set in Korea or just filmed in Korea?
Oh, that's a good question. No, originally set in Busan, South Korea. Gosh. So there we go.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Because obviously a big part of what we do on the show, if you haven't tuned in before, is we kind of compare it to other films from the same country. Obviously, this is a Japanese film. And Japan has such a wide array of film genres that they can pull off. There are these sort of quiet dramas, like I said, this and Perfect Days is probably an example of that. Even though it is by a German director in Vendors, it's it's still an inherently Japanese film. Mm-hmm. We obviously have anime, which we've done on the show for Tokyo Godfathers and things like that, and action films, or especially like old martial arts films are big in Japan as well. So compared to other sort of Japanese dramas or what you see as Japanese film, where does sort of Drive My Car sit? Do you think it's, especially in Japan, such a big character of the film itself? Does this film screams like it's an inherently Japanese? You couldn't really do it in another country or another language or an American remake, God forbid.
I think, like I said before, the way it's filmed is so like it oozes Japan.
Just patience and and like, detail,
really
like you said.
Yeah. It feel that's really shocked me, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know much about South Korea. Maybe it has a similar feel, the countryside, and
maybe,
but yeah,
I guess if we're thinking South Korea, like I'm immediately just thinking Broker, which is again more the comparison I'm making is that there is a road trip element to it as well. You know what I mean? I guess watching that film, I guess there were similarities in the emotion I was feeling towards it, but maybe who knows? Yeah. How about yourself?
I think like Josh said, so much of the film is tied up in its Japanese identity.
Yeah.
And with Hamaguchi, as I said, being a Japanese director, Murakami being a Japanese writer, it's hard to imagine it being not a Japanese film.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
I don't even know what that would look like. I think it would still be great if it was set and filmed in South Korea.
Because the story is very inherently human, right? Like I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards it. But there is, like we both said, there's something so inherently Japanese about it that it's like, that's it. That's kind of, it's thrown me a little bit too. I'm trying to think what this movie would look like because that's interesting.
Yeah, I'd happily watch the South Korean version.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Just please never make this set in America.
No, we don't need that. We don't need that at all.
But as you started talking about with, I guess, the other third, probably the second character, I think Koji is kind of the third character, but Misaki, Toko is the actress.
Toko, yeah. Oh, my bad. Yes, sorry.
Misaki is the driver. She's sort of very quiet and mysterious at the start.
Yes.
And then she sort of opens up and we learn more about her and I guess her traumatic childhood.
Yeah.
But again, as you were saying, it's not two sides of the same coin, but they've gone on very similar journeys.
Yeah.
And much in the same way that Yusuke holds on to his car as sort of this, relic of his life
Yeah.
beforehand. Misaki also has this scar on her cheek.
Yes.
That's sort of come from her traumatic childhood that she sort of says, the doctor told me they could do some surgery and make it basically invisible, but she doesn't want that because it sort of serves as this reminder of what happened and where she's come from.
Yeah.
And so they're very similar in that regard, in that they're trying to get on with their lives, but they're still very much holding on to these things from their old lives.
Yes.
From their past lives. You could
Hey.
say.
Unfortunately, doesn't qualify for the show. God damn it! But that would be great if it did. I want to bring up something that I just found interesting, and it's not necessarily inherently the Japanese aspect of the film, but the play that they're doing, Uncle Vanya, they're doing a multilingual version of it.
Which is super interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. So they've got obviously Japanese speaking parts, they've got English speaking parts, and then they have a Korean sign language part. So I found it was Korean sign language is what they were doing in the film.
There's the Taiwanese.
A Taiwanese actor as well.
And then
Japanese.
Yeah.
Japanese, Taiwanese, and someone doing Korean sign language.
And English. And
then they've got sort of a screen above the stage which has the dialogue in sort of multiple different languages, which I think that'd be such a cool way to see.
It'd be very,
because you don't necessarily need to understand what they're saying as long as you can read it.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah,
we watch films subtitled, so why would we not watch a play
subtitled as well? Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that emotion still comes across, and the actress who's signing has some of the most, the emotionally powerful performance moments.
The dinner scene is amazing. I love that
earlier
moment.
when you were talking about scenes. That for me, I love that scene. That was my favorite.
So one of the he's a producer on the play.
He's the dramaturge.
The dramaturg. Okay.
Which I was reading up is basically the person who is kind of responsible for making sure that like a literary consultant.
Right, okay.
So it's making sure that it stays on track for
as Chekhov intended.
Yeah.
The multilingual version of the show. Invites Ryusuke over for dinner. And it's kind of like, hey, just so you know, before we go in, my wife will be there, and my wife is also an actress in the play, and I love that. That's like it's a very cheeky reveal.
Yeah,
his face, Yusuke's face, he's sort of like, you bastard.
You got me. He's like, obviously, I didn't want to tell you because, like, if she got fired, awkward. But
and also you might feel like you have to cast her because she's white, or you might feel like you can't cast her because she's white. It's a cute little moment in a film full of lots of sad moments.
Yeah,
it's a really sort of heartwarming.
It's it's a lot of levity, but and then that scene is brilliant. Speaking of attention to detail, just the way that table is set out and the way Hamaguchi films it, it's just so beautiful to look at. But obviously, they invite Misaki in for dinner because you see he's like, you can't just sit in the car. Like, you can come in for dinner. And she's just very quiet, polite, reserved, says a few things. But I love that she just gets out for the table and goes and plays with the dog.
That is 100% something I would do at a dinner party.
Oh, absolutely. The dog is always the best person at a dinner party, by the way. So, sorry to anyone who's had me over for a dinner party. But your dog is cooler than you. But I think that's a universal thing. Like, everyone loves dogs more than people.
I definitely have friends who I'm only friends with because they have a good dog.
And you know what? They might know it, and that's okay.
That's why they've got the dog.
But Misaki, like, patting the dog, I'm like, it's a sweet scene. It's a moment of levity in a movie that is quite sad. But do you think it's sad to a point, like, were you ever almost moved to tears? Like, we were all talking recently, just like randomly, we all saw The Iron Claw recently, and we are all pretty goddamn emotional in that film. Yeah. But there was no point in driving my car where I felt like I was going to be moved to tears, but I was moved by it as well in
That's
some
good
parts.
for me to know, because I thought I was missing that connection.
Right.
Especially towards the end where he breaks down.
Yes. Yeah.
I was watching it thinking, should I be
not
feeling
happening,
more about this?
Heartless bastard.
Yeah, I know. I was kind of like, why don't I? We've spent so long building.
Literally 3 hours building up to it, right? Yeah.
I felt like there should have been more of an emotional.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think because it doesn't have those big sweeping emotional moments, right? It's not like that real gut punch of a moment. Yeah. We talked on our Q&A episode about films that have made us cry.
Yeah.
And I talked about the scene at the end of Coda where she's singing and signing to a family. That is an obvious
that's an emotion. That's a manipulatively emotional moment, right?
That is Sean Hayter going, "You're going to cry now." But I think Drive My Car doesn't have those. I think there are definitely moments where I felt emotional.
Yep.
The ending scene where he's on stage and the play's wrapping up and the the actress who signs is sort of doing the bit about
oh my god,
there's no reward in this life. We just have to keep working.
I've got it here if
others.
you want to hear it, because this is probably one of the parts that moved me the most. We shall hear the angels, we shall see the whole sky all in diamonds, we shall see how all earthly evil, all of our sufferings, and drowned in the mercy that will fill the whole world, and our life will grow peaceful, tender, sweet as caress. You've had no joy in life, but wait, Uncle Vanya, wait, we shall rest. It's just like the whole movie is just led to this point where everyone finally can be like, I'm okay now. You know what I mean? Like, it's quite nice. Like, I'm not fixed, but I'm okay. And that's quite sweet. Yeah.
And that's what I was saying with like how Uncle Vanya does have some parallels to the film and to Yusuke's story.
Okay. Yeah.
In that, not that he's had, no joy in his life, but we do find out again pretty early in the film that he and Otto had a child.
Yeah.
That died quite young.
Yeah.
And then he sort of wanted more kids and she didn't, and that became a sort of point of contention. And that's sort of when she quit acting and started writing instead. And their relationship sort of fizzled out.
Yeah.
And that's another connection between Yusuke and Misaki, in that Misaki is the same age as Yusuke's daughter
She would have been
had
at that
she
point.
died,
Yeah.
Yes.
which is another connection.
Oh god.
Yeah.
And there's a bit where it cuts back to Yusuke, and we hear a line from Uncle Vanya, which is something along the lines of, he's been pretending to be someone he's not for 15 years.
Yeah.
And that's a line from the play, but it's a pretty accurate reflection of Yusuke and where he's at, because he's been trapped in this marriage that he's not sure he's happy in. He loves Otto, but isn't sure that she loves him or that he loves her in the right way. He wanted children. He lost his only child. It's like, for 15 years, he's been living this life that maybe isn't the right one for him. So there are those parallels. And like I said, you will, I think, get more out of the film the more you know about the play. Yeah. But if you haven't seen it and you don't know anything about it, don't let that put you off, because it's
absolutely not.
It's still a beautiful film.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think even if, we're saying, we didn't quite connect emotionally with it as much as we'd hoped or as much as other people, I think we all still really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
And I think Nick and I really, really enjoyed it.
Yes. Josh hated it. He absolutely hated it.
It was the worst film that Josh saw in 2021. He much preferred Fast X.
Oh, yes.
The better movie about cars.
But who didn't? Yeah. Actually, if anyone's going to do an American remake of Drive My Car, Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel as Yusuke. Michelle Rodriguez as Misaki.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to play Uncle Vanya.
Arnie, is that you?
Where's Schwarzenegger? Where is he at?
Governor Schwarzenegger?
I agree. I think it's a beautiful film. I feel like, and that's would be the elevator pitch to me, is like, it is just such a well-crafted film that is just such a slice of life with complex characters. That's not necessarily a complex story, but maybe if you do know more about the subtext of everything, the complexity sort of adds on there, and there's extra layers that do get added onto the narrative and the characters. I was just so immersed in like the cinematography of this film. I'm a sucker for amazing visuals. If Greg Fraser directed the Fast X movie, I'd be like, that's the most beautiful thing in the world, because, you know what I mean? Like, I just get sucked in by how good things look. So the aesthetic of this film is just
That's a great way of actually describing it, the aesthetic.
Yeah.
I think it's that feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rather than the look, because on a surface level, it looks quite basic, right? Obviously, there's a lot of care put into it, but
details and stuff.
it's those minutiae.
Yeah,
minimalistic,
absolutely.
and it's that aesthetic, that feel.
Spark and joy.
And I think so much of how you connect to it is how you kind of look at that and how it makes you feel.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think films like this, it's so much time and place.
Yeah.
Because I think I probably wasn't in the best headspace to watch a film like this when I did in my rewatch. Like it's a big emotional 3-hour film.
Did you watch it all in one sitting too?
I did, probably over the course of like 4 hours. Like I'd pause and like do something else for 10 minutes because I just couldn't really get engaged with it the way I wanted.
Right. Yeah.
So I think you really do need to be in the right headspace to watch a film like this.
How about yourself? Did you rewatch it all in one sitting
I
as
watched
well?
it in one, yeah.
God, you're a marathon man. You're so good. I did it in 3 sittings. I did it over 3 1-hour episodes. The way Martin Scorsese intended.
Watched on his phone as well.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I think, but obviously we've all watched it in its entirety anyway. We saw it at the cinema. And I definitely feel like I was far more immersed at the cinema. And that's not to say I didn't enjoy it this time around, but I think we all kind of said this before we started recording. I was hoping to get more out of it on a second watch, and I didn't. Yeah. But I don't know whether that's my fault. Here's the thing I'll say, and I love this saying: movies don't change, but we change. So I'm thinking it's probably not the movie's fault that I didn't get much out of it the second time. Maybe it just gave me all I had to give.
Yeah,
and that's good.
I think Kieran's right as well. Like, I think it is a movie that you.
Sorry, can you just say that again?
That'll be the next reel. It'll just be Kieran is right. Kieran is right. Kieran is right.
You're always right, mate.
Mate, stop. It only gets so erect.
Welcome to that 1-inch barrier where you can come on cinema and then Kieran's just. Sorry,
but you do it, and for me, you would really need to feel like going into this type of movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, for the podcast, and as we all do, try to leave it closer to the date of the podcast.
Yeah, you want to be as fresh as possible.
Yeah, and then if you've got like a few days to get it in there and you don't quite feel like it and we've got to put it on.
Yeah.
And that's probably, again, where I was sat a couple of nights ago.
That was me. Yeah, I was like, I had the day off work on Friday. I was like, I need to watch this. It's my only chance to watch it before before we record.
Yeah.
And I just probably wasn't in the right mood for that film then.
Yeah.
In terms of scores, what did we all give it originally? and what are we giving it now? Starting with you, Nick.
I did the Kieran thing where I was like, I shouldn't give things 5 stars because I gave it 5 stars when I first saw it. I remember loving it.
Yeah.
I'm probably going down to a 4 now.
Yep.
I think it's probably almost at a 4.5 again for me, but I do think that with more subtext and with, like I said, more post reading, I think I will get more out of it. Again, I don't think it's the movie's fault at all, but I'm sitting at a 4 right now. Yeah, especially like we were talking about earlier, if we compare this to what we wanted to win, which is Worst Person in the World, which again is not an attack on Drive My Car at all. To me, that's a 5-star movie, Worst Person in the World. Like, I love that film. So I'm like, so what is the key difference between those two films? And a lot of it is the understanding, the emotional connection I had with Worst Person in the World, which then should realistically automatically take away from Drive My Car. So I'm going a 4 now.
Yeah.
Josh?
I actually can't remember what I rated it when we came out of the cinema.
Okay.
I actually... No,
what do you feel like you probably gave it?
I probably would have given it 3.5.
Yep.
And I'm on 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like we said before that I was expecting to pick something more up this time.
Neither of you have this on Letterboxd, by the way. Logged.
No, I don't think because when did we watch? When did we?
Mine should
2022.
Yeah, I'm not sure how active I was on Letterboxd.
Interesting.
I've definitely logged it. I just haven't rated it from the rewatch.
Oh, that might be why then.
Little secret.
The same, yeah.
So
I look. I can see like it's beautifully made.
Yeah.
But my experience with it, is 3.5.
Yeah.
Okay. How about yourself?
So I gave it a 4 originally.
Yep.
And I do remember sort of it being, if we're going to get down into the real minutiae of it, it's sort of like a 4.2, 4.3. Like it was somewhere in between a 4 and 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I tend to, if I have to question it, I'll go down.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I'll round down rather than round up. And I fully expected to do the same thing that I did with All Quiet on the Western Front because I gave that a 4 originally. We rewatched it for the show. It went up to a 4.5. And I thought, before even watching this, I went, Drive My Car's going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to watch it again. It's going to go up to 4.5. And it didn't.
Interesting.
It stayed at a 4.
Yeah.
It, again, probably was somewhere between a 4 and a 4.5.
Yeah.
I loved all the same things about it. I loved the way it looked, the way it felt. The script is beautifully written and the performances are incredible. I can't fault any of the performances. But it's 3 hours long.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to be.
No.
Even with the 40-minute intro, I'd keep the 40-minute intro because I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think when the credits pop up, it is fantastic.
Yeah,
it makes me kind of realize, the story's kind of actually starting now. I've got all the context that I need for this story to now happen. And that's fantastic. It's a great decision from Hamaguchi.
But I think you cut 20 minutes, you speed up the pacing a little bit, and I think it probably jumps up. On a technical level, if we're just talking purely objective filmmaking and all that sort of stuff, it's a 5-star film. I think it's perfectly made.
Yeah. Oh, God, absolutely. Yeah.
But for my own...
brilliant.
For my own personal enjoyment, I think a 4 is more reflective. But as Nick so beautifully put it, films don't change, we do. Oh, you beautiful man, mate.
I stole that from someone,
right
so I
too.
can't. Yeah, I can't claim that.
Everything's plagiarism.
But
at
I
this
will.
point.
Yeah.
ChatGPT writes all my reviews. So.
Actually, we are ChatGPT right now. We haven't recorded an episode for 6 months.
We've never even met.
We're not real. Yeah, none of us are real. Someone's going to take that right now and be like, holy shit, we're in a simulation. Like, these fuckers aren't real.
Someone's going to go full Keanu in the Matrix. But I think there is... I wouldn't be surprised if I watch this again in 2, 5, 10 years.
Yeah.
And have a completely different experience with it, and it goes up to a 5.
Yeah.
Because it's a beautiful movie.
Yeah.
It's so subtle and devastating and weirdly horny in the first 40 minutes.
It is. Yeah. A lot of sex, a lot of talk about masturbation. Like, it's a real proper horny film. Yeah.
And then it just gets sad.
And then but hey, just like sex, it's horny.
Really good at the start and then just
it's
sad. But it is a really beautiful film, beautiful feeling, beautiful looking.
Yeah.
The fact that Hidetoshi Nishijima, who plays the main character,
Oh my God,
wasn't nominated for Best Actor in a Leading Role. It's so subtly devastating.
It is, yeah. He's
He
brilliant.
does so much with so little.
Yeah.
I think he's fantastic.
I think so too.
And I remember really highlighting him in my review of the film from a couple of years ago now.
Yeah.
That his performance was one that really stood out. I'm assuming same for you guys.
I loved him.
or-
I thought he was fantastic. I don't think there's a bad performance in this film, but he is by far outstanding.
Yeah.
You know who really annoyed me? I guess she's like the director of the theater company.
Oh,
the
yes.
older woman.
Yeah. Initially, when they're like talking about the contracts and stuff. At the beginning. Yeah.
And then
okay.
I get that. Yeah.
there's a we've sort of delved into spoiler territory, but I don't want to spoil it too much. But there's a scene late in the film where one of the characters can no longer be in the production.
Yes. Yeah.
And Yusuke has to sort of step up.
Yeah.
And she sort of is like, we either have to cancel or you have to act in the play.
Yeah.
And Yusuke's like, this terrible thing has just happened to this person. Can we not talk about this right now?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, well, I guess we'll cancel then. It's like, fuck you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they would be like. Yeah.
Talking about a film we saw recently in The Iron Claw.
Yeah.
When the dad in that is
man.
oh yeah, this terrible thing has happened. So which one of you is going to wrestle?
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, really? Excuse me.
yeah.
Like literally 2 minutes has passed. Yeah.
so she just really annoyed me, but that's not her fault. Like the character seems like an idiot.
It's a well acted, well written character. So
I really like the dramaturge as well.
yeah.
He's really
who's the
good.
signing actress's husband. Like
Especially at that dinner scene. He's just like
God, he's brilliant.
grinning ear to ear.
He's just such a happy little
such a
dude.
happy fella. Yeah.
Happy fella.
But in that dinner scene, there's a beautiful moment where Yusuke, who he's not like a bad guy, right? But he's very sort of closed off and reserved, obviously, through what's happened.
Yeah.
And he doesn't strike me as an overly, nice director. Like he's we're going to sit at the table and we're going to read
just gonna
lines.
read it
Yeah.
and
Don't
read
put
it
any
and read
emotion
it.
in it. Don't act. Just read
I
lines.
found that interesting to watch as well. I think that's a very interesting way to approach it.
Yeah, it's always fun seeing the creative process of a production within a production.
Yes, yeah, absolutely,
like
yeah,
filmmaking within films.
Yeah.
But he's not like an overly touchy-feely emotional guy,
Yeah.
right? And so when they're having dinner, he sort of says to this actress who she's not deaf because she can hear them, but she signs. So I'm assuming she's mute.
Yeah.
And he says to her, is there anything I can do to make rehearsals easier for you?
Yeah.
And she basically comes back and says to him, why would you ask me that, but you don't ask it to anyone else?
Yeah.
Like, don't give me special
I don't need
treatment.
special
Don't treat me differently.
consideration. Yeah.
Yeah, which is, and he's sort of like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I think that's beautiful. And I think
Yeah.
that's a great point for people with disabilities in general. It's like they don't want to be treated
Differently.
differently
yeah,
or
no,
special.
absolutely, yeah.
They just want you to treat them like you would any other person.
Absolutely.
And so that's a really beautiful moment. And they share some great scenes. There's just, I feel like I've said this about films on the podcast before, but it feels like a film of moments,
Yeah, it does.
yeah.
right? Like
sure.
the audition scene, the dinner scene, the scene where they're acting out in the
In the
park.
park. I was just thinking about that scene. I love that moment.
The driving with the cigarettes, the trip to the dump, like
Yeah.
it's, and when they go back to Masaki's, home village, it's all these little moments.
Yeah.
And I think they're beautiful moments individually.
Yeah.
And when you put them all together, you do get, as Nick said, this sort of slice of life, just look at these characters who really do feel like complex human beings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's no one who's even Koji, who you could argue is, I guess, the antagonist because he was having an affair with Otto, and he's making sort of life difficult for Yusuke, I guess, in the production. Is still a really complex individual.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
And he feels like trying to, look at it from his perspective, he's grieving as well because he's lost this woman that he loves. But does he have any right to grieve? Does he have any right to love this woman? And so he feels this connection to Yusuke, but Yusuke does and doesn't feel this connection to him.
Yeah.
So like it's layers.
Yeah.
It is a very layered film. And I think just because we didn't get more out of it on a second viewing doesn't mean that I don't think you will.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. Well, it's a good way to wrap up on Drive My Car. And obviously we spoke about it earlier in the episode as well, but like I think it's deserving of the Oscar win, but it's not it wouldn't have been my personal pick, I guess. So it's definitely worthy of its nomination and win.
It competed for the Palme d'Or, and I'm wondering excuse me. I'm wondering what won that year instead.
Yeah.
I can quickly look that up for sure.
Because it won Best Screenplay at Cannes, didn't it?
I've got it up here. Let's have a look.
Yes.
Titan.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Nah.
Well, I mean, we know how maybe Titan will have to pop up on the show one day. Titan and Raw. So Titan won the Palme d'Or.
But this did compete for it.
But it did compete,
It did get Best Screenplay, I think.
I'm just... They don't
I think it's on here.
make this easy to navigate.
Wow.
Wikipedia. Thank you.
This was the first Japanese film to receive a Best Picture nomination.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. Okay.
That's shocking.
That is quite shocking, actually. Yeah. Well, there we go. I mean, look, deservedly so, but like, it'd be interesting to look back and be like, what other Japanese films sort of deserves it as well? Maybe they'll pop up on the show.
But the fact that there's no Kurosawa films.
Oh my God, yeah. Actually,
like
that's a blind spot
Seven
for
Samurai,
me.
High and Low. The one that got remade into Living with Bill Nye.
Oh, yes.
Ikaru?
Yes.
Ikaru, yeah.
God, Living was great.
Yeah.
There's so many great films that were in competition for the Palme d'Or that year as well. Like just looking, it's like Worst Person in the World obviously was as well. Red Rocket was.
That's a good film.
It's a fantastic film. Nitram.
Wow.
That is a great movie.
Memoria, which I know we watched and we were kind of like, we were very...
That's the Tilda Swinton one, right?
Yeah, we were intrigued by it.
It was intriguing.
That's for sure. A Hero, Asghar Farhadi was part of it as well.
Which will probably pop up on the show at some point. Asghar Farhadi, I'd say.
The greatest international film ever made, The French Dispatch.
I liked The French Dispatch.
I know you did.
I didn't mind it. I quite liked it.
But I mean,
Number Six.
I'd watch a Wes Anderson commercial for hemorrhoid cream. I think I've made that joke about other things. It's
the most aesthetic commercial for hemorrhoid cream ever made. So, but that was Drive My Car, the 2021 winner for Best International Feature Film at the Academy Awards, which makes you wonder, what could the next one be in 4 weeks' time? I'll do the Oscar one first, and then
well, here's
Josh
the point,
has been
actually.
teasing us.
Here's the point. Because we do these monthly, right?
I mean, 4 months' time, not 4 weeks.
Yeah, so it's going to be 3 or 4 months before we're getting to the next Best International Feature winner.
Very true, yeah.
By which time this
There
year's
will be
Academy
another
Awards will have happened.
Oh,
That's
So we might be
true.
going forwards instead of backwards for an episode.
Yeah, okay. We'll hold on. We'll hold off on it then. We'll see where we are in a couple of months' time, which sounds weird to say.
Any early predictions on what you think might win Best
fantastic
International
question.
Feature based on what you've seen this year?
Anatomy of a Fall will win it, I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
It's got it, right?
Yeah.
What else is it? What else is competing against it?
I mean, I think that's one of the best films of the year, not just best foreign films of the year.
I think it's really good.
Zone of Interest is in there as well.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I keep forgetting
I
that.
don't think that's going to win.
Their Society of the Snow is probably one that's a bit of an underdog as well. I've heard that's fantastic.
It's really good.
When are we getting that over here?
It's on Netflix at the moment.
Yeah.
Clearly, I pay attention.
Oh, sorry. I still haven't watched it yet, so don't.
Tracking to become one of Netflix's biggest non-English movies ever.
Yeah, I mean, fair though.
Yeah, cool.
Because I think there's
really
so
good.
much buzz. There's so much buzz about it. But Zone of Interest. So the main predicted nominees are They don't have Anatomy of a Fall in here. So, Variety, get your fucking shit together. They have Zone of Interest, Society of the Snow, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany, 20 Days in Mariupol from Ukraine, and The Taste of Things from France.
Yeah.
I've heard The Taste of
Totem
Things
I've heard.
as sort of coming up. Totem I've heard, and Fallen Leaves from Finland.
Yeah,
and then
okay.
Perfect Days is in there too.
Anatomy of a Fall's more than 50%
Yeah.
in a language
It
other than English,
has
right?
to be.
Because there's quite a bit of English in it.
Let's Anatomy.
But Also, if
Yeah,
you're just
it was
here for Drive My
definitely-
Car, feel free to
There's
turn
a
it off.
lot,
But
yeah,
we're just
yeah.
going to
you don't want to turn away because Josh is going to reveal the movie that he's been teasing us.
Oh, of course. So just
about,
hang on while we keep edging you for a little bit longer.
Well, we edged just a little more. France did not submit Anatomy of a Fall as its Oscar choice for Best International Feature Film.
What the fuck, France?
That's crazy.
They're going for that, which makes sense now
So what
because
did they
I just read
submit
out The
instead?
Taste of Things.
Oh, so that's their submission.
That's their submission.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
That would've
So
won.
Our predictions are off.
That would've won.
That I think.
I reckon that
I
would've
think they're
won.
going for Best Picture. They'll be going for The Big Dog,
Yep. Okay.
which there's a small film called Oppenheimer that will probably win it. But,
Yeah.
Just not to tangent on it too much.
no, absolutely.
I loved Oppenheimer. We all loved Oppenheimer.
We love the Schloppenheimer, yeah.
But if Oppenheimer wins Best Picture, the Nolan fanboys are going to be fucking insufferable.
Oh god, yeah. I mean, they already were. They already were.
And I say that as someone who loves Christopher Nolan.
I loved it. I loved
But
Oppenheimer.
holy shit.
I know, yeah, yeah.
They're going to be so goddamn hard. Like, my worst case scenario is Oppenheimer wins Best Picture, Cillian wins Best Actor, Robert Downey Jr. wins Best Supporting Actor. And not that any of them would be undeserving.
No, cinematography, visual effects, like all of it. Right? Screenplay. Imagine if it wins screenplay
Yeah,
as well.
if it wins like 9 Oscars, I think I'm just going to get off of like the film community for about 6 months.
you need a break. You
Yeah,
need a
oh man.
you need a sabbatical.
Yeah, they're going to be terrible.
Well,
Though equally, imagine those same people if Barbie won like 9 Oscars.
Oh,
yeah, I
God,
know. Yeah,
yes.
it'd be. There's no winning for us fans who just like movies. And speaking of liking movies, Josh has got our next pick for our March episode.
So
That
the
1
next
inch barrier.
the next Oscar one is going to be another round, isn't it?
Maybe.
Oh,
Depends
yeah,
on
okay.
what
Yeah,
wins
so
the,
so another round, the
the 2020.
Thomas Vinterberg,
Yes.
Mads
Yeah,
Mikkelsen
I'm
starring
excited
film.
for
That was the 2020 winner.
Yes.
So we may go back to that,
Yeah.
Or
okay.
we
or
may.
we may go forwards for this year's winner
Because
because the Oscars
time
are.
is a flat circle.
Speaking of Christopher Nolan, because the Oscars are in March.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not following it that closely this year. I won't lie to you guys.
We're still probably going to take the day off work and go and watch it.
I mean, probably. But Josh, what have
Yes.
you got lined up for
Well-
us? So you've been teasing us for a while that obviously the context of Etima Matabian being our most listened to episode
Yeah.
and the horniest episode.
And the horniest
which is the
episode.
connection
Also your
there.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think anyone cares about the actual content that we're talking about or
It's
the
just-
film. It's just everyone loves sex.
Everyone's horny. So
horny
you
movie.
fucking
Josh is keeping the horny train going
Yeah.
from what you've teased us
Well,
with.
I thought let's see what else we could get. That's
Oh, okay.
yeah.
What are we watching?
I am slightly concerned about how foreign this might be.
Okay.
But I'm
It's actually 50 Shades of Grey.
But we're watching it with the German dub. Get the Fluggenspiel.
I definitely knew this guy would pop up on the podcast.
Okay.
I didn't think it would be this film, but because of the horny element, I thought I'd go
Okay.
with this one.
Oh.
So it's Gaspar Noé.
Oh.
I've never seen a Gasper film.
Interesting.
Is this the first one you anyway?
Oh, I think I am okay. Yeah, no. I
So
think I know what it is. I was
I'm
like, I
going-
hope it's not irreversible. Oh my God, like that's not.
no.
Irreversible isn't a horny film.
I was like, I'm not gonna say it is.
Love. 2015's Love.
Yeah.
I have not seen this movie yet,
Which
but I'm aware.
got released into cinemas in 3D. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember. Yeah, Love in
And
3D.
kind
See
of-
the jizz reel coming out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and known for its real
yeah,
sex scenes in the film.
non-simulated sex
yeah,
scenes.
Yeah.
I've never seen the film, but I know of the scene.
Yeah.
Imagine that in 3D. If we can find a 3D copy, and
Yeah.
The poster's quite horny.
the poster's very horny. Yeah.
But
And
I remember
the
it
text
being
of-
a big 3D thing.
the text of love is very much
Yeah.
we know what that is.
Yeah.
I'm
So
very intrigued to
It
watch
is
this.
an American living in Paris.
Okay.
who enters a highly sexually and emotionally charged relationship.
All right. Well, Gasper's a French director.
Yeah, French director. It says languages spoken English and French.
So countries
of origin, France and Belgium. So
we'll allow it. Not because I'm just keen to watch someone horny. Yeah, this will be.
You can watch other things for that, right? There are things without letterboxd entries that you can.
I'm going to be interested because critically it didn't do that well.
Right.
I think
2 hours,
it was quite
15
polarizing.
minutes.
I mean, I feel like Gasper as a director is pretty polarizing, but
I'm a big fan of his work.
It'd be interesting to watch
Climax
a film that's
is one
Climax
of his
is amazing.
best films. Yeah.
I've heard good things about.
Yeah, amazing.
Climax.
Yeah.
I still
And
haven't.
Into the Void.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard that's
yeah.
a pretty heavy film.
But it'd be interesting to watch a film that isn't critically acclaimed because I feel like we for obvious reasons, we do a lot of critically acclaimed
we
films.
gravitate to them, right? Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to find like the real shitty foreign films.
Yeah, we gotta dive deep into them. I think
The Alone in the
this will be
Dark
interesting.
of France.
Fucking Uwe Boll. There'll be Uwe. I'm sure we'll come across Uwe Boll one day. I'm sure he's done a German film.
Get him on the show.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fan, apparently.
You can go toe to toe in the ring with him.
I think if we can find a 3D copy of this, we should try and watch it in 3D too. I genuinely think that we should try and do
just
that.
not together.
Shotgun using the glasses first, and then you guys can get my 3D glasses sloppy seconds. On that lovely note, we all have love to look forward to on the next month's episode of That 1 Inch Barrier. But thank you all for watching and listening. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. Comment below what you think of Drive My Car and if you believe it actually should have won the Oscar for Best International Feature of 2021. All of our Letterboxd accounts, our social media accounts are in the description below. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of That 1 Inch Barrier.
Catch you next time.
Thank you.
Horny.